Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly conversation where we sort of dress up what we've been thinking about as some sort of high-minded, highfalutin topic. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
This week I have been doing some assembling some self-tracking data from all over the place. So I thought we'd have a little conversation about the quantified self-tracking. So all those, those watches that track your moves and the apps that track your sleep and Ivanka's got a new watch. She's showing to the camera, tune into the video feed. So I make some apps that do self-tracking, happiness, and I've got a calories one that I've lost interest in. I've got a habit tracking one that we're going to talk about that.
I like a stat, but I'm not as dedicated to quantifying myself as you are. But I do like stats. I've got my Wi-Fi scales. That's my shining example of persistent data tracking. But I do like to measure how far I've walked and how fast I swam and things like that. I like it.
And yes, and we'll try and sort of talk a little bit about, because on one hand it's like a collector mentality, I suppose, and like a completionist mentality, but on the other hand, like, you do want it to be actionable on some level. And as my partner's mother just said to me when I showed her my graph, "Why are you doing this?" How's it going, Ivanka?
It's going well. I've been working very, very, very hard for the entirety of the whole COVID period. I've been very fortunate to have work, so I'm not dissing it, but it's slowly, a couple of projects are ending, and I'm feeling a sense of relief of having delivered some things. I also ran a training course remotely over the Zooms and the Miros. And that was, I approached it with some trepidation, because I usually deliver courses in a room, in front of people, with people, sort of in a workshop-y style. So, but I did prepare, and I think we all had a nice time. It's different, but not necessarily bad. So I was very, very tired, though, when I'd finished that, which was yesterday. And so, yes.
So have you got millions of pounds?
Well. Yeah, millions,
absolutely
millions of pounds. I basically have bought myself, because I've bought myself a bit of reprieve, I suppose. I could perhaps go back to, I don't know.
Do you know what would you do with your reprieve? Play with the child, or?
Well, yes, I'd hoped. I've basically the whole summer's gone, and I've not had a holiday. I've not spent time where it's just been the three of us off doing something, because, Nick and I spoke about it. It was like, right now is not the time to be turning down work. So it's very much a make hay while the sun shines attitude. Yeah. I still have work, which I'm delighted to have, and I'm doing a couple of interesting projects, but instead of them being full on, they're 1 day a week. Yeah. So, which is much more, that's what I need. I don't need big things. But yes, it also means that we've been able to pay people who work with us on Restaurants Brighton, because we haven't had to take money out of that business. Right. So, it's not entirely just for the benefit of me and my shopping habit, which I don't have, apart from my new watch.
Well, there we go. Okie dokes.
Because it was my birthday, and I bought myself a new watch.
Yes, was it?
Yeah, it was my birthday.
When was it did I miss your birthday?
Yeah.
When was it?
But don't worry. A couple of Sundays ago.
Oh. I guess I was in the thick of travelling and stuff. I don't know. Sorry.
Doesn't
Happy
matter.
birthday,
I don't
Ivanka.
advertise. Thank you. I don't particularly advertise my birthday, nor do I particularly get depressed about my birthday, but I had a nice birthday. It was good. Okay. Bought myself a watch.
Good.
So yeah, and yes, I'm quite good, really. How are you, Michael? Are you well? I see you are still in Italy.
Last day in Italy. We're travelling today. We went to Switzerland yesterday.
What? Did they let you in?
They didn't even look at the passports. We just like drove up to Lugano.
What?
Yeah.
How do people live with no controls on their borders? I just
They'll
don't understand.
flood in and ruin the place, even though like it's one of the most beautiful places ever. Lugano. It's like, it's so ruined by their sort of like lax attitude to borders.
Yeah.
No, it's not the borders. So that was, and we got. It had been saying we were going to get massive thunderstorms for days ahead. It was like thunderstorms, and then it was just like a really beautiful day. And there we go. So lots of footage this week in the video podcast of some sort of rippling water, which I'll put some music over, things like that. Mostly in Lugano.
I think we may have had your thunderstorms. We've had rain, blessed rain, which we haven't had really all summer, except for now my tangerines are splitting because I think they've had too much water very suddenly, so they've all gone and exploded.
We have had thunderstorms here as well, but like it was just that for the day trip we were spared, so that was nice. And also, speaking of Zoom, I noticed that Zoom has a share my phone screen via AirPlay feature now, which means that I am going to get some app sales from people having Zoom meetings and wanting to use their phone as a camera. So I wrote a little blog post about that yesterday. Just plug it in or do the thing, do AirPlay, jobs are good. And I've started working on Shoot, which is the app that actually sells. I've finally figured out a way to put something on the screen without upsetting, without like breaking my promise of never having any UI on screen. So I can actually have stuff on in some situations I can actually have an overlays on the phone screen without them showing up on the mirrored screen. So that means I can open up a whole lot of stuff. And I'm quite excited about like putting a little sort of survey in there. What do you use this app? Like, what are you doing with this today? Kind of thing. What are you shooting today? What are you doing? And it's going to be, are you streaming? Are you like having meetings? Are you doing something else? Surgery. Someone was doing surgery with it. I got an email. They were like,
really?
Yeah. They were shooting like some surgery. And then I'll like ask them. What? And then my idea is I'll start like if I can get them to sort of give me their Twitch usernames and things like that, I can start like dropping into into people's chat and just like ask them how it's going and like say, oh yeah, I made that app and like see what people are into and start sort of engaging with that community a bit more. Or also I had an idea for a virtual green screen, like using the depth camera. So you can just like the phone can do that thing, and so like some ideas have started kind of flooding in now around my app that's actually selling. As I sort of like chip away at Donegood, I think it's like nearly there, but I've been working on my blog post about that. So hopefully in the next few days that blog post will come out, and that's got a nice like quantified self-data visualization in the top, which I've been working on, and then it kind of links into all of my actual products as well, because that's what I'm using for everything. So that I'm feeling excited. Flying back to the UK after recording this podcast, so I'll be back in gloomy old London. I mean, Milan's kind of gloomy, but we've got like it's a nice flat here, so it's nice apartment. But hey, so there we go. I'm good. I'm positive, I think.
You're certainly sounding enthusiastic.
Yes, good.
I didn't understand your Zoom meeting camera thing.
Oh, okay. Well, the Zoom meeting. So to use your phone as a camera in like the streaming software, it's always been a case of you mirror your camera screen to the computer, and then like plug that into the streaming software so that now you can, and then my app just kind of puts the camera footage without any overlays on it, so that you can like have the naked camera footage, which is actually surprisingly hard to do. Like you can't like make the controls disappear in the built-in camera, and it's got all these little things on the top of it, so it doesn't work. To do that with Zoom, like there was like a workaround where if you fired up a QuickTime window and like started a phone screen recording, you could sort of, and then mirror that window, you could sort of do it. But I like that Zoom has like added a new feature where you can just AirPlay your phone screen into Zoom directly and then just share that. So it's just like few enough steps now and enough sort of in Zoom's like that it's supported that I can provide the camera and they can they're doing the rest. I see. So there we go. Anyway, there'll be a link in the thing. So Let's get on the topic. These people are waiting for us to talk about quantified
With
self.
bated breath.
Desperately waiting. What's your experience of all this tracking your day?
Tracking my tracks. I do like an activity tracker.
Health, fitness,
that sort of, yeah. But I've had a Jawbone. I've done a little bit of trying different things out. Jawbone was just a bracelet or a clip that just tracks steps, Fitbit basically. Sort of. And it had quite a good app and it had a team. I've stopped using it because I think a couple of them broke, and I was like, but I bought them for various family members who as a way of encouraging them to be more active. And that did work to some extent because people then competed with each other. And there was a bit of a thing going on. But I did not persist with that myself. I did it for whatever. How
long do you stick with these things generally?
Well, it depends on what it is. Like the scales thing, the Wi-Fi scales I have persisted with now for years.
Oh, that's good because it's easy to sort of lose the habit on something like that. Sometimes if you get discouraged, it's like, I don't want to know.
Yeah, but I think I've got over the psychological barrier quite early on of that just because your weight went up by 0.5 kilo this week really is not the, it's an overall trend you're looking for, or so I've embraced the weighing myself regularly thing.
Yeah, that's good. I remember pre the existence of Withings and sort of mid 2000s, early 2000s, sort of starting to weigh myself and just going, I just need this on a graph. And then when I trying to get a bit of graph paper and start doing it on the graph paper, it's hard to sustain. And then the Withings scale, I sort of heard about this when it came out. I was like, 100, I don't know if I can spend 120 quid on this, but now I'm on my second ones, and I wouldn't sacrifice it. I just love having that data,
Touch wood, we're still on the first one, but I got it, or I was encouraged to get it after I had my baby, because I didn't put that much weight on being pregnant. It was after the baby rocks up and you're very sleepless and breastfeeding, and I can eat all the cakes, so I did, and lots of pizza, so I did it. That was sort of the thing that encouraged me. But since then I don't even really treat it like, I appreciate from having those scales that this number is kind of a irrelevance, really. It's just all you really need to know about is whether your number's going up, because you could stand on it 3 different times of the day and be quite different. So I've sort of, that was the psychological barrier for me, was this what, how much?
Yeah. And I'm still plotting my happiness against whether the weight went up or down this morning. I need to just squint at it and see how much of a correlation there is. But it still makes me, things that my app sales and my weight can make me grumpy. It doesn't make me grumpy when I know that I ate loads of cake yesterday, but it does make me grumpy when I feel like I had a really healthy day and it's gone up, and I'm like, oh, what is the point of this then?
I I just see it as this reminder in the morning of whether it's no, now today you must definitely not have cake. Today's not a good cake.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's sort of just kind of make me. You don't let it. And I think the good reason to keep tracking stuff like this, it's mundane, and if you can get it in a way that it doesn't take any time out of your day, it's just like a habit that you just do it. It does help you it stops things getting away from you.
Yeah.
And I think that's with weighing yourself. I think that's with happiness tracking. I think it's with I don't know what else. I think those 2 examples certainly. I think I find it useful to if I'm sort of staying on top of it. I know that you sort of stop. It stops it building up in the back of your mind as a source of unhappiness. When if you do it every day, you can maybe have a day where you're oh, I feel so disgusting, and then the next day it's oh, hey, -5, and then you're sort of okay, it's okay. And if you didn't do that, you could just end up sort of starting to slide into some slightly unhealthy behaviours more easily. No?
I mean, yeah. Well, I think that's right. I mean, my motivation, and this is why the activity tracking I think is good as well. But it's like I understand that it's this letting it get away from you thing is for me is a risk. Even with exercise, I've always exercised, but unless I'm paying attention, it could be 10 days since I actually went out for a run. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of like, oh, has it been that long? Oh yeah, it has. So it's so having those. So it's not really that I don't really. I make note of my speed, and like you say, I'm very happy when I've run a faster speed. I'm like, hey, I'm super fit now, but I don't really chase it. I just don't want to be. I appreciate that. I am 46 years old now, and I just want to be as healthy as I can be for as long as I can be. So therefore, I don't want to be overweight, and I don't want to be inactive. It's really simple.
Good. I think the tracking, the other side of it, that there is that sort of achievements and awards side of it that but that I think that stuff doesn't work very long. Like the Apple Watch kind of giving you, tracking, have you closed your rings today? You sort of you do it for a bit and then you sort of fall off it. But one that I am, I've got my Myzone band thing that I do workouts in, and I'm it sort of takes a year to go up a level, and you have to be consistent and sort of doing these, sort of doing a certain amount of exercise every week for it to sort of go up. But I've sort of gone through the bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and if I've just got I'm 9 months away from Hall of Fame status on my gym affiliated fitness tracker, and it is it is I don't know if it's more of a motivation to work out or more of a motivation to keep tracking the workouts on this particular thing. Because I think once I've done that, I'm up to that. I've done this last step, then I'll be sort of probably lose interest in tracking quite so rigorously.
And that's one of the things that I've got a problem. I'm trying to, as we know from my Fairphone purchase and things, I'm trying to sort of not be so Apple-y. And I think the Apple, for the life I live, the Apple Watch, for example, it's a very urban watch. I think it's for people who go to the gym or do legs in a pool. It is, and if I go on a I ride bike, I go mountain biking, I do walks and runs, I swim in the sea. I've had that. I've never swam in the swimming pool in that watch, and every time I get in the sea, it goes, would you like to record a pool swim? No. And then I have to adjust it. So it's, I think that's... But it's just annoying.
My one would...
what is the point of me giving you all this data about myself if you're not going to learn a basic...
true,
what is the most popular thing she does? Outdoor swimming. Let's offer her that as the first option, shall we?
Yeah, it's funny. I liked that it sort of thought I was... it was detected, you're doing an elliptical thing when I do... But it was like an air diner. It was it's close... But I wish you'd just get it right. So
that's why I pay you the big bucks, is to say, looks like you're doing an outdoor swim.
Well, this is the risk of trying to be too clever as well. You start to set up this expectation that it's going to, I'm sort of cautious about in my apps kind of trying to make it too clever, because as soon as you start doing that, it's you're just going to get it wrong so often. And it's going to be it's just going to be a whole job just keeping track of the difference between you start analysing that data of how much people are changing it and interpreting that and having some sort of dashboard for that, and how would you even make sure that you're doing a good job of it without people just going, oh, this watch is a bit crap.
I think it's I think it raises that the big question of how much effort do I have to put in, or how much perceived effort is there to recording the data. Like with the scales, there is absolutely no effort involved on my part other than standing on the scales.
Yeah, or you just put the watch on, or you put the band on, and if you're tracking happiness, obviously it couldn't be easier than my app Changes, where it's just like sending a tweet, and it takes 1 second. But like, yeah, I think like I think it's better to consistently track worse data, like slightly
bad data,
not bad data, but like
incomplete.
A minimum amount or incomplete, or sort of, you know, like I think it's better to have consistently track it, even if it's not like the most detailed data ever, than it is to try and like get people to track some whole big. Well, I mean, I guess I'm thinking in terms of happiness tracking. Like, if I kind of put a big like questionnaire in front of you every day, then you're going to fall off pretty quickly. I'm trying to think if there's other examples of that sort of thing, but as soon as you sort of stop tracking it, then you start to lose the benefit. And especially, I think what you said about like, oh, it's been like 10 days since I last worked out, and went with my Good Habits app to start with, it would just be, it was a while before I put in you're like, you haven't done this, it's like -10, -12, -30 days.
Right, yeah.
But I do find like there is a psychological thing to, oh, well, I haven't tracked for like 5 days now, what's the point anymore?
Yeah.
Like, you feel like if you fall off, and then you have to sort of like, there's that sort of effort to get like, okay, like just do it. Like, it takes no time.
But I think I'd say that, like, if it was anything, because I've just never got into the happiness tracking. It's just, but I can understand where it might be beneficial, because it is nice sometimes when you're feeling very low to remember that you have felt like that before. Or for me, I can go, well, actually that did happen the other time when I was this tired, this hungry, this whatever, end of a project, whatever it might be. But relying on your own memory, as we know, is not great.
Our present feelings dominate our expectations and memories.
Also, our memories are made up.
Yeah, they're just a compression algorithm that's not particularly effective.
Well, it's a reconstruction.
Yeah, well, it turns it into a story, which it wasn't, in order to make it take up less brain space in your meaty brain. So they're sort of like turned into these little kind of nuggets and like get rid of all of the detail. Get rid of the main thing that gets lost in your memories is what you were worried about at that time, which is so like it dominates your present is sort of dominated about what if this happens, what if this, like expectations, like kind of predictions. But once one thing happened, then your brain has no reason to hold on to all of those sort of anxieties and fears and questions that you're asking. So that's why it's good to write them down, because the brain just doesn't care about. I mean, you remember some like, oh, I was really worried that this was going to happen, but like so much of our brain is dominated by that stuff.
Well, so what matters to me professionally when I talk about user research is that the brain memories are reconstructed every time you go to recall them. They don't exist as like a little photo that you go back and say, oh, how did I feel that day? It's more of a, the little blocks, the Lego blocks that you reconstruct. So it's never, the memory's never the same twice in a row.
Yeah, so people can be suggested as well. People are quite suggestible with their memories as well. So they can think they remember something, but really it could have been implanted, like Inception. It's a real bummer when I look back over my data and I've got a big gap in it. When I'm sort of like looking at my graph of particularly my happiness data, I wasn't tracking for like 2, 3, 4 years. And I really regret that, because now I've got this timeline stretching back to 2011 to the present, but it's got this huge gap in the middle. And I wish I had all that data. And I'm never going to get that now. So I think it's nice to kind of be consistent and keep tracking.
I think that's an interesting side of this, because there's a couple of things. There's that sort of your tracking is being sold on the idea of deferred reward. So, if you put the time in now to put in all this data, you'll get it, you'll have the benefit of it in X amount of time once you've collected enough of it. So it's that sort of a deferred reward is not the proper name, but there is a proper name of that experiment they do with children where they go, here's your marshmallow.
Delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification, thank you. So there's a delayed gratification thing. And then there's the whole, though, if you set a standard of recording every day and then you stop recording, then if that means that you're falling off a cliff, then why would you that's an impossible standard. So you said better to have some minimal data consistently than to have loads of data, brilliant data just for 2-3 days and then you stop doing it because you get bored. But getting back on it is really hard for people.
It's annoying to get back on it, but you need sort of, and a lot of it because it is quite reductive. A reductive summary of something. Just here's a number that represents your mood, that represents how much exercise, what you did there when you worked out. It says, well, boil it down to a number. So that's why you need a lot of it to start pulling out any insights or to start getting any value from the data as well. Because it's like we're more than a metric. So and there's some things. So, I mean, have you ever? What have you sort of? Do you feel like you've learnt anything from? What are the sort of insights that you've found from any self-tracking?
Because of the kind of data I track, and I think that's the interesting thing about recording data as well. You'll be looking at what you're recording. So on that reductive front, it's like if you're taking your temperature, you'll only ever know your temperature. You won't know how much you weigh, sort of, But I think what I've learned is that falling off the wagon is not the end of the world. If I haven't exercised for 2 weeks and I go for a run, it will be nice. At the end of it, I will feel good, though I don't actually record my feelings. So it's that whole, I've ruined it now. I can't do it anymore.
Don't break the chain.
But I'm not so obsessed with not breaking the chain. I don't really care. I don't have the life where I don't have a life that's in that. So I have all I've learned is how to motivate myself more rather than having some app go, oh, you're this kind of person. So I've that's the only reflection I can give on the data that I've been recording, that I am more calm and more accepting of when I'm not not exercising every day and being mega fit or being the right weight or whatever thing I've set myself. But you use it a lot more than me.
I wanted to talk about tracking work.
Okay.
Because I'm in this this year. I've been 15 months or whatever that I've been working for myself. I basically had a timer going that whenever I'm working to like track where my time's going against everything. Which I think if a company expected you to do that, that'd be pretty. That's sort of on the Big Brother, like that's on the sort of like micromanaging control spectrum of like, oh, you must account for every second. But we do have to account for our time when we work in agencies where we're sort of across different projects. But now I sort of feel a bit uncomfortable if I haven't got that timer going when I'm working on something, because something I really did learn from doing that for 6 months. But it's not just the tracking, it's also the writing up the big report about it and sort of going, okay, like what happened? And the thing that I saw was that, oh yeah, like when I'm doing one thing, I can't do the other thing. And so instead of feeling like, oh, I'm making loads of progress on loads of different things, which is what I feel if I'm not tracking it, tracking sort of every minute and actually being able to see literally how the time on one project takes away from the time on another project, I found really useful. So now I'm quite uncomfortable not tracking my work, but I was wondering what you thought about that, like attempting to like track all of your time.
The first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that some of the things that I do, I was talking about this yesterday in terms of like preparing this training course. It's very hard to say how much time it took me, because it's like, it's not just about, because I was trying to differentiate between the time that I was sat in front of my computer typing slides and designing exercises and how much time I was thinking about it while I was doing something else. And it was quite like, I literally woke up in the morning with a few ideas for exercises. So it's like, how do I, so I find it a bit odd. So yeah, I thought that one thing is like, what activities do I track if some of what I'm doing is thinking, and especially qualitative analysis? There's just like, there is nothing to show. You're just like pattern sorting in your head, really. And then that's one thing about it. And then the other thing is this idea, I'm more curious about time I waste doing non-work activities at the computer. Just check what's going on Twitter, or I don't think I do. And that, I don't think I do that excessively, or how often I allow myself to follow my nose down some interesting reading path, which has actually not got much to do with what I'm supposed to be doing my VAT return. Why am I reading about, I don't know, quantified self?
I've written down procrastination because I'm making this tool for time tracking, but it's important to me to have that. I've got like 2 buttons down the bottom, like take a break and procrastinate. And I think it's like procrastination is a strangely productive activity. And sometimes you can like, but anyway, that's just, I won't say any more about it, but I think that's what, I think you can get a lot done. And look, Mum No Computer's got a good talk on like productive procrastination. He's supposed to be recording an album, he ends up building a Furby organ. Because instead of doing the work you're supposed to be doing, it can be a great motivator, like putting off working on what you're supposed to be working on. But the other thing, and the background processing thing. So I suppose like when you're not literally sitting down, turning up, typing, you're still like background processing all the time, depending on your job. But I have to say, like, I think one of my problems is I feel so much more productive when I'm writing code, when I'm doing something, when I can say, look, I spent 4 hours today making this thing work, getting this thing together. But that's and so when I switch to a sort of writing task or something, and I'm suddenly like, I've just got to walk around, I've got to eat a biscuit, I've got to think. You're doing a lot of this kind of processing and trying to make sense of like this kind of white noise of stuff, like trying to hone it down, making decisions about what it's going to be. And it gives me anxiety, this kind of like this process of having to, make something from nothing kind of thing, like just in words. I tend to favour those, okay, I'm building something, tasks, because of just the emotional impact that, like, having to feel non-productive because your brain's got to like figure stuff out.
The hardest thing for me at the end of any core research is working out what needs to be written up, in what format, so that it's going to have the most impact. And it can take me days to produce 2 blog posts. It's like, what have you got out of it? But actually, after all the processing, these are, if everyone read these 2 things, that would have an impact, that would achieve something, that would do something. That's all you need to know. Well, don't worry, I've interviewed the people, I've analysed the data, this is what you need to know. But that feels, the process of creating those feels horribly unproductive.
Yeah.
It's like, what have I been doing for 2 days? I've just written some sentences and deleted them over and over again all day.
Yeah, and you've got to boil down all of that work and all of that brilliant experience and all of that stuff down to like three lines, and it's like, well, doesn't seem like it represents
all that work.
I guess that's what, academics like to write loads and loads of words, because they feel like, I suppose it's part of the fact that you're just mostly thinking, you sort of feel like you want to show how much thinking you've done, but really it's better when it's a page and you just get it. But yeah, and that thing of like when I'm like programming work, I'm sort of like I sort of feel like I'm making relatively predictable progress. But yeah, this other process, this procrastinating thinking thing, it's like there's the space, and then that sort of like you do get into it in the end, and then you're like in that flow, and it's really fun, but it's always a bit too late, and like
it's nearly time to go. But I think the flow, the getting to the point of flow, that's the bit that takes the work as well. It's like that if I could fast track that would be helpful.
And it only happens if you sit down but I think what I have learned from having my buttons, my little system, is like, actually when I see the timer, I'll sit down and press start on a task, and then I'll feel like I've been procrastinating for ages, then I'll look back and it'll be like 12 minutes, I'll be like, oh, no, that's all right.
But yeah, so maybe that's the relief of tracking things. That's sort of your perception versus what actually happened.
Yeah, and certain things our brains aren't so good at like understanding. Yeah, time is this very fluid thing when it comes to your perception of it. But if you just stick a timer up, then I found like it does, like, this approach to life has become, I have to explicitly, if I didn't have my take half-hour break, if I didn't have my buttons, it would be very easy to just like never take any breaks or just get completely fixated on the productive minutes. So it's really important to have like a human understanding of what humans need when you're just trying to track every minute. And I think like when employers are, because a lot of jobs, like that sort of the more entry level jobs, shall we say, there's like, or just certain types of things like driving a truck or like Amazon warehouse or all those things, it's going to be very sort of metrics driven. And if that's designed, if those metrics and those systems are designed by someone that doesn't actually do that work, they're going to start really like dehumanizing you, I think, by forcing you to like start to compete on these metrics and setting these quotas that, and then you get these people like having to, not take toilet breaks and you like use a bottle because it's going to like take 6 minutes out of their morning, which they can't afford.
Yeah. But then lawyers have forever measured every minute that they do. They're like, set timer. Yeah. Oh, look, there's another minute at £12.
I suppose we would be remiss if, I think, like, to contrast self-tracking with, like, other people
being
tracking you being tracked, and the whole privacy discussion, let's make because like we've got to cover this if that's the subject we're going to have. A lot of my data I would very much not like someone else to be able to get hold of, like even like tracking your runs, and so if that leaks then suddenly everyone knows where you live, or
absolutely
like there's so many things around that, and like just it's funny like moving between countries at the I sort of flew to Italy and we sort of drove up to Switzerland, but you get these text messages and it sort of reminds you that like your phones
know where you are
very much tracked, and they've got your phone number and they know where you're from and they know where you're moving to. But I think like why can't I think what I hate the most about that sort of thing is that we don't have access to the data that they're storing about us.
But one of the things I jokingly said to somebody, because who came to visit us, it was not my mother, but the friends, I was like, well, if you are going to go around the block, because she's supposed to be in like strict quarantine, make sure you leave your phone at home. And I was only half joking, because it's that sort of, like as soon as you've been outside with your phone, that somebody's got access to that, or it can be accessed, and it's like
try and stay between cell tower zones. That's the main thing.
Yeah. So this sort of thing came up recently, because I'm working on a social care project, and there are various now devices and apps you can put on people, in people, around people, to record their temperatures, to monitor and send things off to some sort of central processing unit that goes, oh look, we must go and visit this person but they're collecting very personal data. But at the moment they're selling it as a benefit to the person whose data's being recorded, and I think that's part of the problem as well. It's like the data is only of benefit to me perhaps if I am going to be using it to make a decision, but if someone's going to be using it to make a decision on my behalf, then it can only be of benefit to them. You've removed all potential agency from me to be making a decision about what's right for me, which I think is where it can get all a bit
and especially when they're aggregating all of that data from lots of different people and starting to sort of I know how good people are at analysing data. I have to say, like, having seen it in I've been in the odd startup where someone's like, trying to do like data science, and it's rarely anything particularly sophisticated, and I'm sure Google is doing some pretty cutting edge stuff, and the machine, but as we've said, like, it's very easy to see the failures of machine learning
every time I go out for an outdoor swim.
Well, exactly. But the one thing, and I have to say, like, I would love to have my genetic profile, but I just do not. I'm not giving 23andMe that data. I'm not giving one of these commercial companies that data, because I do, like, that's one thing I'm like, that's just one step too far. Like, I don't mind like Runkeeper having my I sort of trust them enough. Like, as long as they don't leak it to my actual, like, my enemies or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know
who they are.
I don't even know what that is. Or like, my mood tracking, I build enough of my own tools that I only have to trust myself, and I more or less do, so that's okay. But that DNA thing, like, because it's like, it's still such early stage, sort of the analysis of it, that you just worry about. I want to own that data, and I would come back to, like, I don't want other people owning all that data about me and not giving it to me. That's why I hate, like, the banks making it difficult to get your data. And just Sainsbury's just before. Sorry, I will let you get. But like, one thing that's winding me up a lot at the moment is like the Sainsbury's Smart Shop. They've got this app that you walk through the supermarket and you scan everything, and you're sort of building up your shopping list. But then when you go to check out, it sort of like clears that all out, and you just pay at the checkout, and you don't get to keep that data. And I just think that's rude.
So you don't keep your list.
It just gets cleared out. So they sort of hold on to it, you pay, rubbish. And it's like, well, why can't I have that? They've deliberately decided to keep that data from me. Even though it would be easier just to leave it on there. So that pisses me off.
That's a bit odd. But I don't have nectar cards and things. I sort of occasionally have dabbled a bit, and then I go, no.
So this is more useful to you than to me.
Than me. You're just going to use it to try to sell me something, and your points, I never redeem them anyway. But yeah, I think the only thing it's sort of, there is this something between analog data and digital data that, like, so I was in the context of this social care project, we were talking about the fact that, for example, like going back and having smear test campaigns where women go and have a smear test every year, every 3 years, whatever, depending on where you are in your life, and that data being anonymously aggregated by, so it's used to say to you, something's a bit odd, you need to go for a check because they're screening for cancer, but equally they can, I don't particularly have any objection to them aggregating that data to go, women in this particular area with this kind of social background or this demographic are more likely to, or something. But these are very limited data items that are not like a lot of these phones, these apps, they record stuff with no purpose other than that they know you're doing this thing, and so they're going to jot it down.
We'll just keep that for later, and we'll probably won't. We'll just
I don't
fill
know.
up this database. And
know.
I'm guilty of this. Like, I'm tracking data. I've sort of chucked a couple of analytics frameworks and stuff here and there, and it's like building up this collection of data that I'm probably never going to get to. Like, I hate trying to make sense of that data, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, so it's that sort of why are we recording all this? So we ran a tool, I can't remember the name of the tool, on Restaurants Brighton the other day, just to make sure we hadn't inadvertently put a couple of plugins that were collecting a few things, and we found we'd forgotten to remove Hotjar, which is a recording, records people's what they're doing on the screen. Right. It's a user research app, but we deleted that, and there's these things that you can inadvertently leave, and it's just chugging away in the background, collecting some data. Nobody knows what it's for, but there it is. And so it's sort of part of all of this is like data storage, the ability to gather this phone that just tracks you everywhere.
We're recording a podcast as video, we don't even need to. No, it's just data. Hey, we can. I've freed some hard disk space.
Yeah. Please do come and analyse my facial movements and my voice and my, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that's the bit. In summary, do whatever makes you happy.
Sounds good. All right, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
If you like the podcast, why not support us on Patreon and join our...
People do.
And join our intimidating Slack channel. Get involved in some philosophical debates about stuff. Look at it going... Oh God! And then maybe get involved.
Reading.
Talk about all sorts. So that's that's started to take off. And where can people find you on the internet, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
You can find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter and other things. Let's plug something. What do you want?
Oh, yes. This week, let's plug brightonnaturalhealthcentre.org.uk, who we have had to start doing a bit of asking for donations but even if you cannot donate, simply come to a class.
And get a virtual massage.
We don't do that.
No, not yet. If you're into quantification, I've got so many bloody apps that do it. Just come to our website, goodtohear.co.uk. You can track your habits, you can track your happiness, you can track your calories, you can track your work. You're just going to have so much data about yourself. It's going to be awesome. You can look at it in augmented reality on a table. It's bloody crazy.
Wow. Have you got a dashboard yet that brings them all together?
So many dashboards. Who doesn't love a dashboard? Just tell me what you want a dashboard of. I'll build it. I don't care. I've got time. I think that's everything. So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.